It may sound surprising when I say this, but I like her. I like when she's acting all hammy and be all, "Wahaha, fool ya!" It's almost as if I'm looking at a girl version of a Kokichiyoma. Except my reaction towards her is quite different. How so, my dear old friend? Well, maybe it's because of all these years of me dealing with people like her. Years and years of having people like Erika being agents of chaos for the people around her. Maybe it's because these games have such a different structure from everything else that I've experienced, that I don't take her actions at heart. Even if she might have killed the first victims of the Twilight. Even. I mean, I was worried about how them dying doesn't have as much effect on me as it should have, but I mean, it still does, nonetheless. I still want to believe that I am connected to these people. Connection. So you feel like the way you connect to this is different from the way you used to? A bit. But I guess before I go and talk about that, before I go on and think one level higher, I want to mention some stuff in regards to the tests that I've seen thus far between the lovers. My worries about them, like the stuff that I've been thinking about during the test, before we move on. You did show a little bit of worry towards them before. Can you explain it a little? I just feel like in most of the cases I've seen, there was something that was lacking, which may have been the point for some of these victims, and those that confronted the victims. And that something is self-love. Ooh, well, that is something. Are you referring to, for example, Kirie? For her, she did everything, and lived through her own hell to have Rudolph for her and her alone, to the point of killing those that are in her way. Even though, well, sorry to say this to Rudolph, but if he was ready to put Kirie on the side as he married Asumu, like as I said during the test, it didn't feel as if he was worth the love to begin with. What made Kirie follow Rudolph to the ends of the road is... like, it is beyond me what reason there was. For someone like Kirie who would suffer for someone who can be lost so easily, she doesn't seem to have the self-love to realize that she doesn't deserve to be treated this way, and live through hell for someone who apparently doesn't love her just as much. I mean, things might have changed through time, but you cannot deny that in the first years of their relationships with Asumu and Kirie, there was something to Rudolph that you wouldn't call it moral, so to speak. And same goes for Rosa. To still have hope for her boyfriend to return after getting her money, even though her boyfriend doesn't even think much of her at this point, I'm sure. She doesn't have the self-love necessary to think, I am me, and I don't deserve to be treated this way, so fuck you for leaving me. Same for Kanon, cause, well, we all know how he is like. And same for Eva, same for Beto. It's like all of these people have the spirit and love to, well, love the other person, to the end of the road even, but not love themselves, which is a dangerous thing. Beto too? Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I understand now. I mean, it spelled it out for me. But Beto mentions Battler by the name of Father as a reference to Kinzo. And it also has the meaning of having unconditional love for someone. You would have unconditional love for your parents, like, it is a bit different. And the fact that Beatrice is trying her best to call Battler by his name, and not as father, to me, it is good. because it tells you that Balor is his own person, and Battle realizes that while she loves him, she herself wants to be loved by him as well, which is what you want in a romantic relationship. So what is the problem, Sport? She also said that she was born for his sake, which, if I am to take the Umineko lenses out and think in a realistic sense, it is dangerous. A person is not born for someone else's sake. They are born for themselves. I mean, she was damn lucky that Battler decided before to be kinder to her and managed to rescue her. Otherwise, he would have stayed the same, and Bato would have died in that test with love for a person that had none. You did say that this may have been the point for some of these victims. Do you think maybe we can try and think one level higher? That is indeed what I was gonna transition myself to. Maybe that is the point. Again, maybe this references how Bato, Kanon, and Shannon, they lack self-love, and in turn, the person who would inhabit all these personalities is one who lacks self-love, if I am to think of previous theories. So, that is one idea. The other is that, well, it is a test. Again, Shannon, Kanon, and Bato, they fight to see which relationship is better. Their victims, and George and Jessica's victims, may be a reflection on themselves. Maybe it's not that Kiria's personality is what transforms Jessica to be the same, but rather showing Kiria's struggles in love is a way of characterizing how Jessica felt before, in smaller doses, of course. I mean, the narration said so too. She was envious of George and Shannon because, well, she wants to have the same thing. She wants to be in a relationship with someone. Ah, I get it. Same thing for Kanon and Rosa. Rosa's characterization here in regards to her waiting for her boyfriend to return may reference how Kanon, or rather Kanon/Shannon/Bato, has been waiting for Balor to show up, and the pain that comes from waiting for that person. Right. So, while I still don't see the value of having to kill someone to prove love, it is at least a way to show parallelism for the characters involved, if Balor had to do it this way. And maybe the person behind the personalities of Bato/Kanon/Shannon, Sayo or Yoshiya, just in the same way the child of love is being described. They want to see which relationship is more successful, like analyze everyone through these fights.
Soね。すべての恋人たちに強い意志の力があることが分かったのだもの。
これは愛の勝利さ。それを僕らは称え合おう。
Everyone had long since gotten used to these two overdramatic demons. George spoke quietly, with an annoyed expression. Yeah, I guess I'll be brutally honest here. I cannot say that I really care much for these two. I mean, they are not that impressive to me thus far. And their way of talking is not something I am fond of as of now.
僕らがそれを称え合うのは君たちの試練を勝ち残り誰かが魔法の奇跡を授かる時だけだよ。
同感だぜ。最初の試練は全員突破した。次は何だ。もう後には引けねえ。何だってやってやるぜ。
はい。
僕たちは負けません。
私たちもです。
ああ、もちろんバトラ君たちもね。
無論だぜ。この中の誰だって譲られて勝利したいなんて甘えてる奴はいないはずだ。
Man, it is nice to see Balor together with Jessica and George. In a magical setting here, that is. It always felt ever since the beginning of time that Balor was all alone by himself, fighting battle and such. Excluding the other magical beings that helped him, like Virgilia and Rono and such. Like, I was expecting Jessica and George to also be a part of all this, given how episode 1 was, like... Well, here we are, I guess, even if it's just for the sake of this love trial.
そうですね。辞退できる程度の弱々しい思いならば、今この場にいる資格はありません。
Even Bato, who seemed to be the shakiest one on the six, was strongly determined. The two demons nodded, taking note of the six's continued resolve.
それで次の試練は何だい？まさかまだ決まってないなんて言うんじゃないだろうね。
少しは脱落者が出ると思ってたからね。
まさか全員が残るとは思わなかったの。これは愛ゆえの嬉しい奇跡の誤算。
うぜえぜ。それで今度こそ脱落者を出すために椅子取りゲームでも始めようってのか。
そう、まさにそのこと。
その通り。
今度の試練では確実に一組にリタイアしてもらうことにしたよ。
今度の試練は非分の第二の番にあやかり、
寄り添いし二人を引き裂け。
意味がわからない。
ゼパル様、フルフル様、どういう試練ですか？
What is there not to understand? I mean, that was the purpose of this trial since the beginning. You guys said it yourself. Only one couple will gain the miracle of love, so...
まさか私たちに殺し合いをしろと？
そりゃ手っ取り早いぜ。
少々文明的ではないけどね。
恋は肉食だぜ。
みんながみんな一緒に幸せになることはできないのですね。
Finally, someone who speaks my language. Am I right?
そういうのをゼロサムゲームって言うんだよ。経済用語だけどね。知ってるかい？
あ、いえ、すみません。
ゼロサムゲーム。勝利も敗北も全てを相殺すればゼロになる。誰かが勝利を得るためには誰かに敗北を強いねばならない。それが世界の冷酷な原理だ。
みんながみんな全員が幸せになれればいいのにな。そんな理想の世界あるわけねえか。
あるよ。
それは黄金鏡。
黄金鏡？何の話だよ。
そうだったな。黄金鏡に至れば全ての愛は満たされる。だがそこは天国や地獄と同じでこの世ならざる場所だ。
それはごめん被りたいね。恋は現世で叶えるから意味がある。僕は死後に恋愛を成就させるための 悲しい心中なんて断じて認めないね。生きて愛を貫く。何者にも負けない。
ジョージさん。
The door to the Golden Land is opened by solving the Aptas riddle. It is said to be a place where love and lives are all whole and can be revived.
話が脱線してる。それより第二の試練をさっさと教えてほしい。
We're straying from the point. You would think that the topic of the Golden Land is a very important thing to discuss with your partner. Like, am I wrong? Like, Jessica doesn't know what that is. And George himself doesn't particularly care for it. Even if it means a lot to you and Shannon, so I don't know if... Alright. Again, just gonna observe the test first. Anyway, we shall see where this entire thing will go.
そうだぜ。寄り添いし二人を引き裂けって何をさせる気だよ。
話はとてもシンプルさ。
恋人たちを引き裂くのは悲しき死の別れしかありえない。
6人のうち1人を殺すのが第2の試練さ。
当然相方を殺された恋人たちは失格となって脱落するわ。
つまり確実に一組の恋人たちに脱落してもらう試練というわけさ。
殺すと簡単に言うが、どうしろってんだ。
殺し合いをしてもいいし、
くじ引きか何かで決めてもいい。
くじ引きで決めるなんて冗談じゃねえぜ。正々堂々と決闘しようじゃねえか。
そうなるとゲームマスターのバトラ君と、記憶がないとはいえ黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェが相当有利な気もするんだけどね。
Man, George surely has done his homework. What he's saying right over here, it feels as if it's coming as second knowledge to him.
どうでしょう。
安心して。この試練ではみんなの力は完全に公平にさせてもらってるんだ。
ゲームマスターのバトラ卿でさえこの試練では全員と互角なの。それなら公平ですね。
完全に純粋に互角なのかい？
ええ、完全に互角。1対1なら勝敗は時の運。完全に互角だからね。
決着にも時間がかかると思うわ。
だから優位な状況で襲うのがコツかな。
とことん時間をかけての決闘ももちろん素敵。
誰が運任せで戦うもんか。自分に有利な状況で戦いたいに決まってるぜ。
となると三つどもえ、これでは動けないのでは。
Data was the first to notice. If all 6 of them were truly on an even footing, and they wanted to fight so that they could win, they would have to fight as pairs and concentrate their attacks on a single person. However, if they did so, that person's partner would naturally join in to fight back as a pair. In other words, it would never end up as 2 against 1. It would be 2 against 2, and a battle like that could go either way. However, if that were to happen, the third pair watching all this could team up with whichever pair they liked with no risk to themselves, defeating the opposing pair with certainty.
面倒な話だね。先に動くことが有利ではないというわけか。
if you take the initiative to fight, it's a matter of luck. If you sit and wait for the others to start fighting, it's certain victory. The fight would never begin in circumstances like this.
6人全員がそれぞれ隣同士と1対1で同時に戦えばいいんじゃないでしょうか。誰かの決着がついた時点で試練は決着する。
Unless everyone could abandon any naive hopes for our 201 fight, this trial would never begin and never end. In that case, they could make a gentleman's agreement and have everyone duel at once, which would be no different from drawing lots. But at least it would be fair.
それは無理。そうなったらみんな積極的に戦わず保身する。その間に誰かが負けてくれればいいのだから。
Shannon's point of view was a sound one. If both fighters just glared at each other without attacking, then neither would lose. They will only have to wait for someone other than themselves to lose first. Maybe all of you could play Tetris 99 or something similar to that, where the person that survives the longest in a survival-based game will win. Or rather, the first one that loses, that pair will lose. And then we continue to the only two pairs. And the first one that loses in that particular pair, the pair will lose. And we will have like one pair left. A game of survival rather than a game of fighting. Let's brought them back to the starting point. No one would fight proactively.
結局全員が動かず決着がつきません。
全員の強さが互角という算数的状況のせいでパズルみたいになっちまったな。
Well, I mean, when you say same strength, that is a very vague concept. Strength in what? That's something that I'm curious about.
そうだね。互いの強さが未知数なら決闘も面白かった。でも完全に互角と言い切られてしまったら決闘はじゃんけんと何も変わらない。
ならいっそ6人全員でじゃんけんで決めますか。
バカ言え、そんなの嫌だぜ。仮に誰かが負けたとしてそいつが潔く負けを認めるわけねえだろ。
負けを認めないならじゃんけんの勝者たち4人に攻撃されることになる。完全に互角なこの世界ではじゃんけんの敗者には生き残れる道理はない。
確かに。なんだじゃんけんで決めるのが一番合理的だってのかよ。
極めて合理的だよ。しかし自分の運命を乱数8世紀に託すような無謀ができるかと言われたら答えはノーだけれどね。
Psst, psst. Hey, Canon! Come here, Lou. I'm gonna offer you a hint. Choose super paper. That will beat everyone, I can tell you.
どうかそれを悩んでほしい。
それが私たちの出題する第二の試練。
考えて殺し合って誰を生贄にするか決めてほしい。
確かに考えられん話ではない。使用人が一番怪しい。
物的証拠があるわけではありませんから縛ってクローゼットに放り込むわけにもいきません。ですから銃を持った皆さんの常に目に届くところに置いてよく見張る必要があります。
兄貴、マスターキーも回収した方がいい。あの密室も使用人たち以外には作れるわけがないんだ。使用人たちしか知らない構造や道具などできっとチェーンロックをどうにかできたに違いない。皆長く勤めてくれている者ばかりだ。私には到底彼らが殺人を犯すとは思えんのだ。
You know, I've been thinking as of late. I wonder when we will go back to that spooky room in which we were closed. I am definitely curious about that, about how things are going there. Also, I mean, we all seen like the preview at the beginning of this game. I wonder where the wedding part of all this will play out. Cause so far, oh, besides that one joke that I made before about proclaiming Erika and Beller as wife and husband and all that, besides that joke that I made there, well, maybe that was it. Maybe Lambda Delta was being cheeky about it and phrased it like that in a wedding-like manner. Maybe that's the only foreshadowing that we get for that, for the wedding.
金蔵さんの寿命もわずかで遺産問題で大きく揺れているそうですね。それに加え10トンの黄金がどこかに隠されているなんて話もあるそうじゃないですか。それらの分け前にありつけるなら人は罪を犯せるかもしれません。
考えたくはないが、クソ親父のおかしなオカルト儀式って可能性もある。片翼の使用人たちは親父の手先で殺人の実行者かもな。親父はどうなんだ。まだ連絡は取れないのか。内線電話も通じないのだ。犯人に壊されたのかもしれない。それに親父殿は不機嫌になると電話の受話器を外していることがよくある。ノックをしてもその不機嫌な返事があるだけだった。
Oh, but we know. Oh, we know.
連絡は取れんが、あの書斎はシェルターも同然だ。むしろ安全だから閉じこもってくれた方がいいだろう。
Flustered, Kraus tried to explain away Kinzo's silence. Beldon, the game master, had made Kinzo's death a major theme for this game, so the conversation didn't go any further. They stopped talking about Kinzo without Rudolph thinking anything was particularly suspicious.
いずれにせよ使用人たちを野放しにはできねえ。それでさっき秀吉兄さんとも相談したんだが、2階に2部屋に分かれて全員で籠城しようということになったんだ。なぜ2部屋なのかね。1部屋の方が心強いだろうが。
さすがに一部屋に12人もの人間では窒息します。そして最も注意すべき人物だけを隔離したいという思惑もあります。
Ah, so it was your idea. What a surprise.
使用人の頭である源氏さん、一番体格のいい幸田さん、若輩とはいえカノンさんも男性です。
この3人を特にマークすべきだと思う。そこでこの3人を隔離し、俺と兄貴で監視する。2丁の銃。俺と兄貴ならとっさの時連携もできる。少しでもおかしな動きを見せたらズドンだ。
ボーン。
分かった、そうしよう。だがルドルフ、彼らが犯人であると決まったわけではない。あまり高圧的にはなるな。兄貴に高圧的になるなか。そりゃ俺たちも老けるわけだぜ。
今 上で秀吉さんに部屋分けをしてもらっています。隔離者たちをいとこ部屋に集め、他はその隣の部屋へ集めます。
そうだ、兄貴。ジェシカちゃんなんだが、兄貴と一緒の部屋がいいと言って聞かない。ジェシカ。
隔離のいとこ部屋が5人、隣の部屋7人の部屋割りでしたからね。ジェシカさんがいとこ部屋を希望するなら、ちょうど半々になります。狼と羊のパズルで言うなら、今は使用人狼が3匹に、クラウスさん、ルドルフさんの羊が2匹。ジェシカさんを加えた方が確かにバランスがいいとは思います。
For a while, Kraus crossed his arms and thought. The cousin's room would surely be more dangerous, so he wanted his daughter to go into the next room over. However, in an emergency situation like this, he also wanted to keep his daughter where he could see her.
一緒にいさせたらどうだ。俺たちが良い父、良い叔父でいるために必要なリミッターの役かもしれねえぜ。そうだな。私も今は理性的なふりをしている。しかしいつ妻を失った悲しみを怒りに置き換えないとは限らん。
Even without any physical evidence, the servants were certainly the most suspicious. During the long haul ahead of these two men, their awareness and anger and sadness could make them lose their reason and act out in anger. After thinking deeply, Kraus decided to accept Jessica's request, in part to prevent this from happening.
それがいいと思います。私も賛成です。
同感だ。子供を失うのは俺とローザだけで十分だ。ルドルフ。
In this way, all the survivors excepting Kenzo split into two groups and holed up in two rooms on the guest house's second floor. One group was in the cousin's room. Kraus, Rudolf, Jessica, Genji, Kanon, and Gora. 6 people. One group was in the next room over. Hideyoshi, George, Shannon, Kumasawa, Nanjo, Erika. 6 people here too. Perhaps as the result of the killer's doing, the external phone line had been cut off, and they would have to wait for the ferry boat coming the next day before they could contact the police. Okay. So this is the configuration. I mean, surely sounds like a new setup for a new murder. Maybe. I mean, Erika clearly wanted this, so it makes me question if she's using the duct tapes for these rooms. And if so, how she's using them to begin with. I mean, you know, Beller did say 3 rooms worth of duct tape, but it is a vague thing. One room can have 2 windows, and another would have like 5 windows. So it makes me question. If one says 3 rooms worth of duct tape, does this mean that you can use 1 seal per room and get to seal like 9 or 10 rooms, like 9 or 10 doors specifically? Or if you are allowed to seal something, you have to seal 3 rooms fully without leaving any exits behind, like no more nor less. Like you cannot choose how to use the seals. Like if you are to use the seals, you have to choose a room. You have to choose a room from the beginning. And then the number of seals will change depending on depending on that room. I don't know. I guess we shall see. Like, thus far, the only thing that I can say is that Erika will more than likely use seals on those 2 rooms. I mean, I guess for right now, it is another waiting game in that sense. Like, However, the weather report had said that the sea would be stormy throughout the next day because of the typhoon. Also, I have to question the placement of the people. Obviously, Erika is manipulating Rudolf and Kraus into suspecting the servants. But it's not necessarily that Erika herself suspects those specific servants, like Gora and Genji. She clearly chose this tactic to have everyone placed in this specific way. I mean, I guess one thing that comes to mind is Shannon and Kano, because of my previous theory, and how you don't get to see Badler and Jeff Goldblum in the same room at the same time. Another idea is that it seems that Shannon and Kanon are with their partners. In fact, Jessica clearly focused on the idea of Jessica being wait, did I say Jessica? That Erika focused on the idea that Jessica should be with Kraus, thus changing Jessica's position in a way that she is with Kanon now, instead of before, where she was with Shannon and George, and Kanon was by himself. She allowed the idea of Jessica being with Kanon there. I guess so. In which case, she's definitely thinking of the love trial as well. When that happens, the ferry boat takes the day off. So it will probably be 2 days before the boat came. In other words, they were going to have to spend a full 2 nights holed up in here. While Erika and the others held their planning meeting in the lounge, food and blankets had been brought in to prepare for the long road ahead. And the sudden tragedy had everyone on edge, but it was already well after 2 a.m. If they really suspected the servants, then the observers couldn't afford to fall asleep at the same time. Either Kraus or Rudolph should take a nap right away.
さすがだな。探偵権限がないにもかかわらず、うまく場を支配しているぜ。
冷静を書いた男など、感情むき出しの犬と同じです。適切に扱えば簡単にコントロール可能です。
One of the benefits of the detective's authority was being able to take charge of the situation. This ability was the reason that Erika had been able to order a large number of adults around at will, in spite of being both an uninvited guest and a young girl. However, she didn't have the power this time. So, Erika had taken charge by making good use of her natural conversation skills and techniques for controlling men. Men!
探偵権限も魔法と同じだな。できないことはやれないってわけだ。エリカにそれだけの力があったから認められていたというわけか。
魔法とは決して怠惰で無力な人間に与えられるものではないのですね。
そうだ。むしろ人知れぬ努力を隠せるやつこそが魔女と呼べるんだろうぜ。
The absolute nature of the detective's authority could even act as magic. However, it didn't seem as though Erika had done nothing to earn that convenient power. I probably need to accept it, even when she isn't given any special powers by the witch she serves. She's very competent on her own.
しかしエリカ、 どうして2部屋に分けた？てっきり1部屋に全員を集めるとばかり思っていたぜ。
探偵権限があればそうしました。これは自由捜査権を確保するための一手です。
ああ、そういうことか。なるほど。やるな。
Serika was being protected as a guest. It was hard for her to move about freely. In truth, she wanted to take some time to investigate the crime scenes at her leisure, without being interrupted by anyone. Why, you're gonna say that you're gonna check on the other room? But in actuality, you're just gonna go on your own and then go to the other room as such. I guess, yeah. In which case, if you were to do it like with one room, then you won't be able to do that so freely. Unless you wanted to go to the bathroom, I guess, but... I mean, you have your bottle, like right over here. You could use that, in case something like that happens. She had already inspected the scenes once as she ran through the mansion. Now that probably wasn't perfect. However, they wouldn't have let a guest into the crime scenes, so that had been her only option back then. She wanted some time to herself and freedom to investigate more, in part so that she could check the locked rooms and causes of death more closely.
それが2部屋に分かれて籠城するのとどう関係があるのでしょう。
そこは奴が口車でうまいことやるのさ。見てな。
ええ、そのためだけに2部屋に分けたのですから。
The cousin's room was filled with a quiet tension. This room had 6 people: Klaus, Jessica, and Rudolph. And then the most suspicious ones, the male servants, Genji, Kanon, and Gora, who had been forced to hole up in here. Jessica leaned against Klaus's shoulder, ramped up in a blankie. She was drowsy, but apparently couldn't get to sleep. Oh. You poor baby. It certainly does remind me of the first game, back when I didn't have as much experience as I do have like right now. Like, we've gone through so many of these games, so many situations like this. It comes as second nature. But in the first game, I truly felt like it was a matter of survival. It has hit me a lot more back then than it does right now. Even though, yeah, I guess I do, when I think back on that, it does bring me back those kinds of feelings where we are here, we are with the humans, closed in one room, just trying to survive for like 2 days, stay in one room and try to survive through this. It is a scary thing for these humans. Even though, in my case, now in Game 6, I'm more preoccupied with other stuff, like above the game board, that I don't have time to go through the motions in similar fashion to the humans here. It was no surprise. In this bizarre situation, it would probably take a lot longer before she could accept her mother's death. Like, you tell me, folks. You tell me if, in the first game, you would imagine a situation like this where, instead of thinking of these people's survival, you would think of what the next move is going to be, or like a detective, or think from the perspective of a reader, like with the rooms and such, like the configuration. Like, we have this room, 6 people here, 6 people there. Like, what a.k.a. is thinking here, it's you didn't get to think much on that in the first game, where most of the time you were thinking of these people's survival in Kinzo's study, for example. Yeah, it's definitely something.